If you're so confident about getting a 1237 before Cleveland, why does Mr. Trump keep complaining about the rules?
He's complaining about the system. We're trying to let voters decide, members of the Republican Party, independents, decide who the nominee should be, not the party bosses. That's the system of the 1920s, not 2016.
You know, it's like saying I made an 83 on my math test, so I should get an A just because I think it's rigged that you have to make a 90 to get an A. I mean, come on. Act like, you know, like you're a professional. Be a pro.
I have zero interest whatsoever in doing it. And there are a lot of reasons, but perhaps the simplest is if Donald is the nominee, Hillary wins.
A couple of clips from the Sunday shows and one from this morning with Ted Cruz on Good Morning America. Well, an important week this week for the Republican presidential candidates. The RNC spring meeting taking place in Florida. It features the Standing Committee on Rules, and they were proposed changes that would govern the GOP during the July convention and for years to come.
Yeah. Could be a big deal. For more on that, we want to welcome to the program here in the flesh our Newsmax chief White House correspondent, John Gizzi. So nice to have you here in person. You've been a very busy man.
Oh, that's an understatement, Miranda. Nice to be here with you.
Great to have you with us,
So
John.
you got the New York primary going on. You're going to be there giving us live coverage from there, but you've got this huge meeting coming up in the spring.
Yes.
This RNC meeting where they're talking about possibly changing the rules, and that could have a huge impact on the July convention.
Yes, it could, and it's poignant that this is going to be in Hollywood, Florida, because one could say it's showtime when they start dealing with the rules. Look, let's put it on the table. Mitt Romney's supporters, not so much Governor Romney himself, are responsible for the current imbroglio the Republicans find themselves in. In the twilight moments of the last convention in 2012, his supporters put through these unusual rules saying it required a majority of delegates from 8 states for a candidate to be placed in nomination. Everyone knows this was done to keep Ron Paul from being nominated. His supporters angrily walked out. They booed. They felt that their man was being mistreated and shown disrespect. There's a strong argument for that. But somehow there's a law of unintended consequences, and this rules change, Rule 40B, has come back to bite currently. As of today, John Kasich cannot be put in nomination as a candidate for president, even though he continues as one of the big 3, and he cannot receive delegate votes to go on. Hence the argument for changing rules that few liked anyway when they were promulgated in 2012.
The RNC finds itself in a very difficult situation, John, and that is this perception game that you've talked about. Whether or not they change the rules, and they're entitled to do that. You've got all 168 members of the RNC huddled up in secret in Florida at a hotel someplace. All 168 are delegates at the convention, so they're making the rules. And we saw Paul Manafort there talking about it's the people versus the RNC. They seem to be winning the battle of perception, the battle of public opinion in the Trump camp. What do you think?
Well, this is, first of all, it will be the Gang of 56, if you'll pardon the term, the 56 members of the Republican National Committee Rules Committee that will decide whether to upend the 8-state rule, Rule 40B, or leave things as they are until the convention sits down in Cleveland. Then there'll be a meeting of the Convention Rules Committee, which is different, and that includes 2 representatives from every state plus the territories and the District of Columbia. And then they will make a decision which will override anything that occurs this week in Hollywood, Florida. And if delegates don't like it, they can have a debate and a vote by the full convention on the floor. So consider it a 3-act drama.
And democracy in action, the way it was intended to play out, much to the dismay of the Trump campaign. This is why these rules are in place, right?
As a student of history and a not-so-young correspondent, I can tell you this. Every time a candidate is trailing, then he or she will usually complain about the rules just as the race is about to be over. My good friend Richard Viguerie from Virginia, well-known conservative, ran for lieutenant governor of the Old Dominion state in 1985. He began wanting the rules changed just before the convention because he knew he was going to lose. And he did.
Doesn't that look bad, though, when you're changing the rules in the middle of a game?
Well, what's different this time is Trump's not losing. He's winning, and he's complaining about the rules and being stolen away from him.
Yeah, and mind you, it used to be with the Republican Party that their rules were all decided at the last convention, and that was it. It was a lot easier to cover Republicans between campaigns because we knew what the rules would be at the next campaigns. Democrats, beginning in 1968, started having mini conventions, midterm conventions, conferences, and their rules were like a mosaic.
And the rules have now been reversed. So
exactly.
Lots to look forward to. We'll keep an eye on that. It takes place. Great having John Gizzi with us in the studio. John,
great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Talking to you in New York, covering the primary tomorrow. Coming up next, though, right here on Newsmax Now, Bernie Sanders catches heat from the late-night comics for claiming he's going to break up those big banks. That and plenty more jokes are coming up right after the break. Plus, there is still time for you to weigh in. Tell us what you think about Donald Trump complaining about the delegate system. Tweet us your thoughts, questions, or comments. We'll be right back.